Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's FPC Radio Live. It is Tuesday. Almost said Wednesday, but it is Tuesday, November 22nd. Just a couple days before Thanksgiving, and Week 11 is now in the books. And John, we may live in a reality where the San Francisco 49ers may be the best team in the NFC. And based on what we saw yesterday, they looked all the dominant team that we expected once they got Christian McCaffrey in a pretty huge win over the Cardinals, the Kyler Murray free Cardinals. John, I mean, it's I don't want to say it was predictable when they added Christian McCaffrey, but we saw the potential of how big of an impact that move was going to make for this 49ers team who kind of struggled a little bit out of the gate. But like I said, I mean, they look like they could be the best team in the NFC right now.
They look like the most complete team, right? Because they can run the ball, they can throw it now that Garoppolo is playing at a pretty high level. Their defense is outstanding on all three levels. They're well coached. They're a team with experience. They got to the NFC Championship game a year ago. Back in 2019, they made it all the way to the Super Bowl, had a 10-point fourth quarter lead, and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs came back and won that game. But, you know, this is a team now that has experience to go with talent. And this time is theirs for now. Because, you know, there's going to be some players that are going to need big contracts going forward. Nick Bosa to name one. So this is really an opportunity for them to maybe win a Super Bowl. I wouldn't be shocked if, you know, 2 months from now, we're watching the San Francisco 49ers parading around in the Bay Area Super Bowl champions. It wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's you know, it's not surprising because we talked about it when the move happened. If Christian McCaffrey can be healthy, it's protection for Jimmy G, and I've said it before, not physical pass protection, but protecting him from himself, because I think we see and we understand that, you know, Jimmy Garoppolo does win games. He's not an elite quarterback, but he's certainly not a bad quarterback. He's almost like in a tier of his own, and that tier is like, we really don't know what the hell we can't explain why he wins so much. But the idea was, well, you add Christian McCaffrey and you have players at every level on that offense that are elite at the mid-range game. And I'm talking Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle when he's healthy. That's what you have right now in an offense that was pretty good to begin with and pretty efficient. Now you're talking about perhaps being at a level that, you know, is only rivaled by some of the best in the league. And then you add in the fact that they have a pretty darn good defense. Yeah, I mean, I liked what I saw yesterday. Again, I'm not, you know, coupled with the Eagles the last couple of weeks, it kind of has opened that door to think, well, really, who has been better, who looks better than the 49ers since that Christian McCaffrey trade? And that'll be interesting to see if it stays rolling like that. I mean, and really, the reality of it is, if he can stay healthy, or if that team can stay healthy, they're going to be in pretty good shape.
That's always an issue with them, right? I mean, remember
sure.
The year after the Super Bowl, they were decimated with injuries. Even last year, early, a lot of injuries, but they got healthy at the right time, got hot at the right time. They've had some injuries this year. Those guys are coming back. And McCaffrey, again, a running back, it's, you know, a difficult situation because they can go down at any moment. But the good thing about McCaffrey being on the 49ers is they don't have to use him as much as Carolina used him, because they have other weapons, like you said, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. Brendan Ayuk is a really good wide receiver. That's a darn good number 2 wide receiver, a good offensive line. So they've got a lot of different ways to beat you. So he doesn't have to have the workload he had in Carolina, where, you know, it felt like 20 carries, 8 catches, and he was the entire offense. He doesn't have to be that.
That might have not even been enough for them. That's the thing. It's like he could do all that, and the Panthers would still lose.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he was a guy who literally should have touched the ball on every snap, because they didn't have much around him, and that's never going to lead to a long, productive career. And we saw the injuries for a couple straight years of McCaffrey, but he seems healthy right now.
Yeah, and look, he was healthy going into the trade, and that was kind of the nice silver lining when the 49ers made that move. But look, I mean, they're in pretty good shape now. What happens in the future with Jimmy G and Trey Lance, I don't know. I can't imagine, and this is just kind of the nature of the business, that teams aren't as tied to their high draft pick quarterbacks as they used to be. So would it shock me if the 49ers decided to move on or go in a different direction? No, not at all. I don't think the book is closed on Trey Lance. I think a lot can happen between now and March when the new league year happens. And a lot can involve winning a Super Bowl, and that really changes quite a bit. When I look at the landscape of the NFC, and we're kind of getting into that meat and potatoes part of the schedule where it's literally meat and potatoes because it's Thanksgiving in a couple days. But the cliche that we hear all the time, and Bill Belichick, obviously has said it over and over, that you really don't know who you are until Thanksgiving. Well, Thanksgiving is here, and I think, and just like every year, it's starting to ring true. And I say that because you're starting to see the teams that we kind of expected to be pretty good kind of settle in, and some of the teams that maybe got off to a little bit of a hot start kind of settle down a little bit. So in the NFC in particular, I'm looking, the Eagles I thought were really good in their first 8 games. They managed to win this past week against Indianapolis, but the last couple weeks have caused you to pump the brakes a little bit on the Eagles. I don't think we both believe that they were so far and above the next NFC team, but I thought there was a pretty comfortable cushion a couple weeks ago between them and the next best team. I don't think that's there anymore. Like, I look at the Eagles, I'm like, yeah, they're a little vulnerable. Like, maybe they were overachieving just a little bit, and that's not a bad thing, John. I'm not saying it is a bad thing, but it makes you think like, oh, okay, maybe they're not a lock for that number 1 seed, or maybe this. And I talk about the Vikings based on what I saw this past week. I got to stop and pause. I mean, when you get absolutely trounced by another NFC contender like that, you can't go in thinking, oh, it was just a blip or it's just a hiccup, because the Vikings, they don't have that cachet to fall back on, John. They don't. Like, they don't have, it's like every so often, say the Patriots would get 42-14 against the Chiefs, and it's like, okay, it's not a big deal. It's the Patriots. We've seen them do this many, many times. We haven't seen that from the Vikings. That could be a potentially devastating blowout loss heading down the stretch here in the last couple months of the season. So, but looking at the NFC, you have the Eagles, you have the Vikings, the 49ers, like I said, could very well be the best NFC team. The Cowboys, again, it depends on the week. It depends on how Dak Prescott plays, but based on what we saw last week, they look like quite the contender. And then, of course, you have the Buccaneers, who, in my estimation, might be the tortoise, or in this hare and tortoise race where everyone has jumped out to a big start. And here come the Buccaneers at 5-5, quietly building a little bit of confidence on offense. And you know what? They could be the most dangerous team. But right now, I think I got to land or give an edge towards the 49ers, just because, like you said, they're just the most complete team. And the Christian McCaffrey deal really, really changed things for me.
Just look at the quarterbacks from the contending teams in the NFC, right? You got Dak Prescott, 1 career playoff win. Jalen Hurts, no playoff wins. Taylor Heineke, no playoff win.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones has never even played a playoff game. Marcus Mariota, 1 playoff win. Geno Smith has never played in a playoff game. Garoppolo actually is the best of the rest in the NFC in terms of playoff wins, because he has, I believe, 4 playoff wins as a quarterback with the San Francisco 49ers. Meanwhile, of course, Tom Brady has 35 playoff wins. So if Tampa Bay is healthy and focused going into the postseason, which I think they will, I wouldn't sleep on them. And again, because of what is out there in the NFC, I think the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFC, we agree, are Brady and Rodgers, or at least they have been forever. Yeah. But obviously Green Bay is on the outside looking in. But that's a distinct advantage that Tampa would have over every team. Don't we want to see Tampa, San Francisco at some point in the postseason? I mean, how sexy would that game be? Literally, with the 2 very good-looking quarterbacks.
It would be ripe with storylines. I'll give you that. And it's hard to pass up all the Brady going back or playing against his hometown team, or the whole Jimmy Garoppolo dynamic and all that. It would be interesting. It would be, I would give you that, and certainly it would be insufferable for, say, like Chiefs fans who think the Super Bowl has already been won, or at least it's the Kansas City Invitational, which is kind of funny, but whatever. Yeah, I like I said, I would think that would be a fun NFC Championship game, a good one though, because I mean I look at right now. I mean, the edge I give to the Buccaneers is that quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I would have to really dive deep into the rest. Maybe quote unquote wide receiver, but you can make an argument that the combination of Kittle, Debo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey is a lot better offensive unit at the moment. So, or at least a skill group. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So before we wrap today up, we're going to do a quick little. I'll give you a little buy or sell, and I'll give you one more chance to make the case because that was actually one of my buy or sells on my short list here. So we'll have to go with it anyway. So right now, actually, you know what? I'll adjust it a little bit. Buy or sell the 49ers in the Super Bowl this year.
I'm buying.
You're buying it.
I'm buying. Yeah. I mean, I want to kick myself for something I did back in February. After last year's Super Bowl, I put out who I think is going to be in the next Super Bowl. I do that every year, before free agency, before the draft. So, like the day after the Super Bowl, I put out it's going to be Buffalo, San Francisco in the Super Bowl. I still feel really good about Buffalo getting there despite some of their ups and downs this year. And when I gave out my predictions at the beginning of the season, I didn't have San Francisco as the NFC champion. I just think their roster is loaded, as I do think Buffalo's is loaded as well. I think the two most complete rosters in the NFL. Doesn't mean they're going to meet the Super Bowl, but yeah, I'm buying that San Francisco may not lose another game, or the next time they lose a game, it might be in the Super Bowl or the NFC championship game. I think San Francisco is that strong. So I'm buying that you're going to see the 49ers in the Super Bowl once again.
All right. Well, you might have actually answered my second question, but
geez, what am I, a mind reader this morning?
maybe.
That's scary. If I'm reading your mind, that's scary.
Well, you kind of mentioned it offhand because I was going to ask, who are you buying more right now in the AFC East? The Bills, who rebounded, after a couple bad losses, or the Miami Dolphins, who right now you can argue might have one of the best offenses in the league. Certainly not on their defensive side, but as we know, offenses win championships in this league, not necessarily defenses. So are you buying the Dolphins or the Bills? And this doesn't necessarily mean who's the better team, if that makes sense. But the circumstances may lead to one of either of these teams winning the division. So I'll ask you one more time, buy or sell the Bills, or do you, let me rephrase that. Do you buy or sell the Dolphins overtaking the Bills in the AFC East?
I'm selling that. I think Buffalo's still going to win the AFC East. I think they're the better team. And then it's also going forward, a month and a half from now, if someone has to go into Kansas City, or 2 months from now, go into Kansas City and play in the AFC Championship game, I have more faith in Josh Allen than I do in Tua, simply because the weather could be a factor. I remember when the Patriots won the 2018 AFC Championship game in Kansas City, it was like 2 degrees. And Brady, of course, great in everything you check. Great cold weather quarterback. Well, I don't know if Tua would be all that great in cold weather. He's kind of a smallish quarterback. Josh Allen's proven he can play in inclement weather because he's a big, strong guy who can, in the end, beat you with his legs. So, no, I still think Buffalo is the better team in the AFC.
All right, buy or sell. The New York Giants have peaked. We asked, we've been wondering all season, is this team for real? Are they overachieving a little bit? They've come back to earth the last couple of weeks. Is this more what we're going to see, a little bit of a regression from the Giants? So one more time, buy or sell, the Giants have peaked.
I'm buying that. And I liked them at the beginning of the season. I had them over 7. They're already at 7, so one more win, I'll cash on that bet. But you could see Sunday, they were only a 3-point favorite at home against the Lions. That's why I kind of called for the upset of the Lions beating the Giants. Didn't surprise me. The Giants have won on the margins this year, winning the turnover battle, not being penalized, being really well coached. That lasts for a while, but sometimes, it doesn't last for an entire season. So I think they're still going to win some more games. Got still a pretty favorable schedule. Making the playoffs may be difficult because you're going to need to get the 9 or 10 wins to make the playoffs, but I think they've kind of peaked at this point. You can just look at the line for Thursday's game in Dallas. Dallas is an 8.5, 9-point favorite at home against the Giants on Turkey Day.
All right, well, that segue me right into, I guess, my next one. Buy or sell the Cowboys as a true Super Bowl contender. And I'm not talking about, Cowboys Nation, Super Bowl, baby. No, I'm talking about legit. Go to your bookie, put money down on the Cowboys as a contender type of buying or selling. So buy or sell that Cowboys as a Super Bowl contender.
I'm going to sell that because they're going to still probably have to win 3 games on the road to get there. And they just haven't shown a consistency from year to year, especially this year on the offensive end. They looked really good against Minnesota on Sunday, but the week before they moved the ball against Green Bay and then they started to turn it over. Like they just seem to find ways to lose these close games. I think their defense is outstanding. Micah Parsons to me is the best defensive player in football, along with Matthew Judon. I imagine those two guys bearing down on you at some point. But yeah, I'm gonna have to sell that because they're gonna probably have to win 3 games on the road to get to the Super Bowl. I think they could be a tough matchup for some teams, but to put 3 together, I don't think so.
Yeah, and if you think about it too, I mean, this past week was nice, but you don't have to look much further than to see them kind of underperform against the Packers, who I think we believe aren't a good team right now. And then go back to week 1 when Dak was healthy and they had a big game against the Buccaneers and they lost. So there is I'm with you on that one. I'm going to sell it right now just because again we've seen flashes from this Cowboys team and to if you're going to ask me in the regular season where they rank among NFC teams, I mean maybe 3 or 4. And that probably goes down when it comes to who do I trust more in the playoffs. There's probably more teams, even if they don't necessarily rank higher in the standing. So, all right, that's going to do it for us here today. Nice quick episode. We're probably going to be back tomorrow to kind of wrap up the week before Thanksgiving and kind of get you ready for the rest of the week, and then maybe perhaps Friday. We'll let you all know about the scheduling and how that all shakes out. But in the meantime, be sure to follow us on Twitter at FPC Radio Live. And of course, head over to Full Press NFL on Twitter and of course, fullpresscoverage.com. So thank you everyone for tuning in and we will talk to you soon.